Welcome back to the show, everybody. My guest today, Scott Bywater, and I will be chatting about content marketing, but not about social media content. We're talking about email content. That's right. Let's get those emails out to your list, get them open, read, and get you selling without feeling salesy. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. It's great to be here.
And I'm excited to have you here because I'm usually the one always talking about like social media, even though I haven't lately. And so it's nice to bring somebody on to talk about other aspects of our business, like our email list and our website that are really the foundation to our business. So we don't have to rely on social media. But before we get into email content, give us a brief overview of your background and why you think our email list is the most undervalued asset in our business.
Yeah, no, great question. So my background, I started in, I guess, the marketing and copywriting world. I probably started in sales when I was about 17 and did that for about 7 years, and then moved into copywriting at about the age of 24. So I've been doing this for about 21 years. But when I started my business with a classified ad, and that's how it kicked off. And I struggled for quite some time until I came across a guy, and he's like, this is what you do. You get people on your email list, and then you email them. And I started to do this. I got people on the email list. I started to email them, and everything became more magnetic instead of going out there and knocking on doors. Because I was cold call telemarketing when I was 17, right? And then doing door-to-door sales and that sort of thing. So I can handle rejection and all of that sort of thing, but it just makes the whole sales process so much tougher, particularly today, because nobody answers their phones, right? So
Right.
it makes it really, really difficult. So what I found when I started to do this, and it didn't necessarily happen immediately, but within a month or two, leads were coming through, the conversion rate was much higher, and it just made the business so much more magnetic. So I've been in love with email ever since. I went through a period where I sent an email every weekday for 10 years, I think it was, to my own list. Yeah, I've done launches for clients which have brought in, up to $1 million in literally within a week using email, and lots of launches that have brought in thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and it's still working. We were doing emails as recently as last month, where I had a client, we were doing email, and it was only a reasonably small list, but we're doing emails, getting people on webinars, and I think he brought in about $50,000 within that first month. So yeah, it's a very powerful and underrated communication method.
Well, and I think too, with the explosion of social media, everyone says social media is where it's at. But I think your post and all of that just gets diluted and buried so quickly. But when you personalize an email and they get that in their inbox, and if you do it right and you got their name in there and your personality is in there and there's a connection level, you got them and they're going to stick with you.
Yes, and you own the list, right? So there's a couple of things there. When you post on social, you can be, all sorts of things can happen, right? You can be shadow banned, you could be kicked off, you could have, I mean, you're not in control of the platform. So my suggestion with social is try and pull them from social across to your own infrastructure and your own network. So still use social, but what email does, it makes everything work better. So even if you're using your paid ads, if you're using social, if you're using YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, any of these methodologies, the email is what will build relationships with them over the long term. And what's more, you can make offers in email, whereas that's quite difficult to do with socials, because it's just not the right. It's not the right. It's a little bit like going out to lunch with your friends and pulling out a brochure and trying to pitch them while you're at lunch. It's just not the right social etiquette, right? And people don't like it. So it's with email that you've got a lot more freedom to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now we're just going to dive right into the goods. And before we do, let the audience know where you're from, because I'm sure they're listening and they're hearing your awesome accent. So where are you today and what time is it? I want to know what time it is.
Yeah. So I'm in Wollongong in Australia, which is, it's a little bit like San Diego is to Los Angeles. We are to Sydney. So we're like 60 to 90 minutes south of Sydney. And yeah, in terms of the time, we are 7:43 a.m. So, but we're the next day. So we're
yes.
Yeah. So depending on who I'm talking to in the US, we tend to be like 16 hours or 14 hours or 18 hours, that sort of thing ahead, which takes a while to get used to, but you do get used to it after you talk to US people a lot. So
yeah. No, that's cool. I'm really glad that we connected. So here is my first loaded question. How can we quickly create some compelling content ideas for our email list?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's two things that generally hold people back with email. One is they don't know what to write about. And it would be the same with social media, right? It's like, what do I write about? Which is really tricky. And the second thing is then, even if they do know what to write about, they're staring at a blank screen, right? And they get like the blank screen itis situation. So how do you overcome that? Well, the first thing it always comes back to with anything copy is getting really clear on your research and entering the conversation going on in your customer's mind. And what I like to do here is get really clear on the fears, pains, desires, beliefs, problems, objections, all benefits, all of that sort of thing about my customer. So how do you do that at speed, right? Because I know your audience is a lot of busy mums, busy women, don't have a lot of time on your hand. How do you actually do that quickly rather than sit down and go, well, I don't know what my customers' fears are. So what AI allows you to do that is to work that out really quickly. Yeah. So you can put that into ChatGPT or Jasper and ask about those fears, ask about those pains, ask about those desires based on your actual target market. And you need to know sort of what prompts to use, but it's not difficult. And then it'll spit it out faster than you can think, right? So you'll have 10 fears in like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. It's like really, really quick. So then from there, you can go, okay, based on this fear, what are some content pieces or some emails that we can send out to our list? And you punch that in and it'll tell you exactly what those content pieces are. So all of a sudden you'll have 100 things that you can write about. Like, so just in a very simple equation, right? You get 10 fears, 10 pains, 10 desires, 10 beliefs. Okay. And you could get 50 of them, but you've got 10 of them. And then you ask for 10, let's say 10 email ideas about the desire to make more, to make more money as a coach or something like that. And you'll get those answers very, very quickly. And then that's how you can build out your content calendar, your email calendar, your social media calendar, all of that sort of thing.
So basically my takeaway is it's important when you are creating the content is you're meeting your customer or your ideal audience where they're at now. And then you transition to what is possible, showing them the possibilities.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Robert Collier said, like, the number one thing is you enter the conversation going on in your customer's mind, right? So if you don't know what that conversation is, then you're not going to be able to communicate with them in a meaningful way. Like, I can write amazing copy, but if it doesn't matter to you, it's not amazing. It's not going to get you to move. It's not going to get you to act if you're not doing that. So that is number one. But yeah, then from there, once you're writing it, you want to have a segue, because what a lot of people do as well with their emails is they will do, they either go one of two ways. They do the scorched earth approach, where it's just pitch, 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 pitch. Or on the flip side, they go down the love letters approach, where it's like amazing content that's helping people, but you're never making an offer, and then you're not making sales. That doesn't serve anyone, because if you're not monetizing it, you're running a business, then you're not going to be able to do it for long. And email is such a way, it's a way to really make a difference in people's lives as well, because if you're communicating amazing content, it actually does, it does help people. And then from there, so what you want to be doing is what I call the third way, which is down the middle, where in the same email, you can be giving amazing content and writing these love letters, but also making an offer and doing a pitch, so that you're actually turning that interest into appointments. And the pitch doesn't even need to be like a hard pitch. You can pitch into, say, like one of the things I'm a really big fan of, and that's working quite well, is you could create 6 reports. Like, let's say you're, I don't know, an accountant, right? There's lots of things that your target market is interested in. They're interested in over here it's superannuation. Over there, I think it's 401ks, right? They're interested in, saving on tax. They're interested in financial planning. They're interested in so many things. They're interested, if you've got business clients, they might be interested in, say, like having a virtual CFO, those sort of things, or tax planning. So even just what I've mentioned there, and I don't understand the accounting industry in detail, but I've come up with 5, right? So you could have 5 reports around those topics. So then if you're writing about tax planning, for example, you're writing content about that. Then at the end of it, you're saying, hey, download my report. After I download your report, I then get put on a different sequence, which is specifically about tax planning. And I get an offer to book in an appointment about tax planning. So you're literally, the idea is that with your email is to book your calendar solid. And this is really powerful, particularly if you're busy. And, like, I know a lot of your listeners are sort of solopreneurs and that sort of thing. So, and you don't have like massive resources, right? So where it's just so powerful is you don't have to spend money to send emails to your list. Yes, you might have to pay $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever, to have a CRM which sends them out. But it's not like you've got to pay Facebook or Google or YouTube any money to get that, to get that reach. So that's where it's just so powerful. And even if you've only got a small list, this is another really important thing, Allison. Even if you've only got a small list, you don't need a large list. Like I've seen, and I actually experienced this firsthand. There was a stage of my business, I was doing a launch for $1,000 product. We sold 42 of those at $1,000. So we made about 42,000 from that launch. And when I actually dissected where the sales came from, it was about 80 to 90% came from a list of about 180 people that were paid subscribers to my list. So I got, let's just call it 80%. I got 80% of my sales from the 180, and I made 20% of my sales from the 6,800. So you can see it's like the 80-20 rule all in tow. So now if you've got a list, let's say of 200 people, 300 people, and they are your clients, they are people who know, like, and trust you. And most businesses have this, right? Like most businesses who've been around for a while, you've served 50, 100, 150, 200 people over that time. Then don't think that you need this Gargeton, like $100,000, $200,000 list in order to be able to make money out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Having a small email list, I think too, let me know what you think on this. I'm going down a rabbit hole now. Is I find with a smaller list, your open rate is higher because you don't have an influx of emails that are going to spam or just never being opened. They haven't opened up your emails in like 6 months and they've never unsubscribed. You've never cleaned it out, which is like another thing that you probably should do. Someone's not opening up your emails for 6 months. They shouldn't be on your list. So what is your take on that as far as like open rates and the amount that's on your email list and like cleaning up your email list?
Yeah, it's important to clean up your email list, just because it's if someone's on your email list and they're not opening, they're not engaging, then the ISPs and people sending the email don't like that. They don't see it as quality of a list. So it's very important to keep an eye on that and do re-engagement campaigns and that sort of thing with the people who are disengaged. And yeah, you're right. Like, and the important thing to remember as well is not all list members are created equal. So for instance, let's say you're running Facebook ads to a cold list, they're probably not going to be as high quality leads as, let's say, if someone listens to this podcast and joins my email list, right? Because yeah, if you've listened to someone for an hour or half an hour or something and you've taken it in and then you've joined the email list, you're far more engaged than if you've seen some random Facebook ad and then joined it. And I found this, I did an exercise early in the day years ago. And one of the things I did, I looked at who joined my email list from my blog. Yeah, so they were going on my blog and then they were joining my email list, and from the Facebook ads. And those joining from my blog were like so much more valuable in terms of the ROI and actually turning into business and clients. So that's something to keep in mind too, is not every email subscriber is created equal. And if you've got existing clients, they're obviously going to be more valuable again, and they might not know everything that you do.
Right.
You know, so like, and they just need a prod, and they're like, oh, really? Allison also does this? Oh, wow. I should engage her for that. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's really true, because we are so close to what we do. And we have to realize that your audience, even though you've worked with them, they still don't know everything you do. So it's really important for you to be engaged in your list, be telling them, and actually tell what you offer. Like, don't be afraid to sell. But my next question following the ideas, once we've utilized AI and we know their fears and their belief system, we got our ideas. But the next piece to that is, how do we get people to actually open our emails? Because we know people are inundated with emails, and these days everyone's signing up for freebies or master classes or courses, and then what happens? You're just flooded with emails. I know I am.
Yes,
I need to do a better
yes.
job of going, okay, I need to unsubscribe from the ones that I'm not engaging with. So how do we get people to open our emails?
Well, the number one thing, interesting enough, because everyone thinks it's subject lines, right? And subject lines are important. But the number one thing that people actually look for is they look at the name, right? So it's the same as if your phone rings. The first thing you look at, I mean, you don't have a subject line on the phone, but you look at it and you look at who's calling you. And, you know, maybe if it's your son or your daughter, you know, you definitely answer the phone, right? Because it's your son or your daughter. If it's, let's say, a work colleague who's, you know, who you know well, you might answer the phone. If it's some random number you don't know, you probably won't answer the phone. So the same applies with email. And that's why it's so important to offer value. You don't have to offer value in every email. You can do the occasional sales pitch and go and do something, you know, where you're pitching directly. But in 80% of your emails, if you're offering value, and I open that email and I go, wow, that was really interesting. Well, that sets up a chain effect. Next time my email comes into your inbox, I'm more likely to open it up. The same as if every time I call you, Allison, I'm adding value to your life, or I'm introducing you to someone, or I'm connecting you with someone, or I'm sending you a client, then you're going to be more likely to take my phone call the next time that I call. And the same applies with email, except you're doing it to, you know, 100 people at a time, 500, 1,000, 5,000 people, all at once. But it's the same human nature hasn't changed in hundreds of years, maybe slightly, but we all have the same desires, we all have the same pains, we all have the same fears. It doesn't, business owners now struggle with time management, and they struggled 20 years ago with time management. There might be different intricacies and nuances to that now, but the pain and the fears are still the same.
So when you're going back to who the email is coming from, so for example, I just put my first name and then I have like a line or a dash, and then it says boss lady in sweatpants. I feel like I don't need my last name in there because by now they know who I am, but I feel it's more personal. It's coming from a friend. And then I always make sure that their name, their first name is in the email, like, hey, Shannon, or hey, Julie, or hey, Sarah, how's it going? So I use my first name for when they get the email. Is there something that we should not be putting in there?
Yeah, I think first name is a really good idea. I think, I'm not a big fan of putting, let's say, your company name. Like, I think boss lady in sweatpants is fine because it's quite personal, it's quite trendy, all that sort of thing. But I wouldn't send it from, for example, if I look at my business name is Copywriting That Sells, for example, I wouldn't send it from Copywriting That Sells because it's like, who is that? Who is
Yeah.
Copywriting That Sells? It's impersonal, that sort of thing. So I think it's really important to build that personal connection with the reader, where they go, it's an email from Allison. And it's also important to have personality in there. This is something that's really important, is like, even if you're using AI to maybe help you, and this is an important thing too. Like, if you're using AI, one of the most powerful things that I've found is that you do it via transcripts, right? So that it actually has you in it, and your personality, and it has you in it. So I might ask a question to you, Allison. I might go, what's the number one way you go about writing content? And then you'll talk about that for 2 or 3 minutes. I take the transcript and then I give the AI the right prompt, and I get the AI to then write an email based off that transcript. So it actually, and then I might even go, hey, these are our other blog posts that Allison has done, and please write it in this sort of language. So not only does it sound very much like you, it's unique to your knowledge. Do you know what I mean? It's not just like some sort of, because that's a real danger with AI, is that it's like, everything just comes out sounding cookie cutter, boring, anyone could create it. I mean, what's the point? Because it's a little bit like, like these days we've all got the iPhone, right?
Right.
iPhone can actually take incredible videos. It can take incredible photos. And if you hand that iPhone to someone who knows what they're doing, they will make it light up. They will make it look like magic. But I can't do that, right? I don't have the skills for that. I haven't learned how to do that. But I know people who are professionals at this, and what they can create is just incredible. So it's the same with AI. If you don't know how to use it, you're just going to punch out substandard, not like just vanilla, ordinary copy, which isn't going to connect. And the problem with that is, so is everyone else, because we can all do it now. It's easy to do, to punch out that vanilla, ordinary copy. So all of a sudden the world gets swamped with more copy, and it's all supply and demand, right? You don't have the attention to take it all in. So then what you do is you go for the most valuable content. So if you're not serving up that valuable content, then there's just too much competition out there. And we already experience it now, right? Back when I was growing up, I mean, I'm making myself sound old now, but if I could find a book to read something about, like personal development or something, it was like, oh wow, this is awesome. Whereas now there's like, I mean, it's not hard to find content about any topic that you want.
Right. And I'm so glad you brought that up about AI. I always tell my audience, AI is just a stepping stone, and it's a generator. Like, I use AI as like my idea generator. but I'm still in charge of writing the content because I got to make sure that I infuse my experience on the topic and my personality. And I think if you
Yes.
make sure your experience and your personality is in the copy, then it's going to come from you. I mean, we have to remember what AI stands for: artificial. We are not artificial. We are human. We are real people. And that needs to come across in your copy. So I'm so glad that you said use AI, but make sure you are using it correctly. Now let's get
Yes.
back to the busy mama solopreneur. How do we write content fast without compromising on quality? And my follow-up question to that is, are you a big fan of batching emails?
Yeah, no, great question. So how do we write email fast without losing quality? Was that the original? That was the first
Yes.
one? Yeah. So I think, I mean, I've never had any issue with writing copy, like with writing emails fast. Yeah. So, but I know there's a lot of people I speak with, and they're like, it takes me like 2 hours to write an email. Yeah. So, and I'm like, wow, really? You know, because to me it's so easy. Yeah. So the old way I used to do it was like talk, write. So I would just imagine that I'm talking it, and then I would just write it very conversationally. You don't have to worry about all the English language principles that you learned at school and all of that sort of thing. So you can do it, definitely do it that way. The way I recommend now is very similar to what I just said, is you take it in there. So you work out, okay, these are the 6 topics I want to talk about. And you list those, those topics, and then you just talk about it. Like I could literally take a transcript of this podcast, get it cut up, and turn it into probably 5 to 20 emails. Right. So then what I can do, I can put an email that I really like into the AI, and then take certain section of that and go, okay, this is a transcript, turn it into an email based off that format. And it can do it. And what you've got there is an email. It doesn't mean that you're going to use it word for word. You might go through, you might edit it, you might cut it up, you might do all of those sort of things with the email. But that's how you do it. Now, in terms of batching content, I think anything I don't always, because sometimes I'm like, I don't find the time to batch, or sometimes I like to go, okay, every morning, like one thing I'm doing at the moment is every morning I just punch out an email first thing. And then that's one of the ways that I've found the best way to be consistent. But anything you can batch in your business is always better. Not better, but it is more efficient, because you get in the thinking zone. And I know there's been a lot of studies done, like if I'm trying to write an email and then I'm taking a phone call and then I'm going to write an email, and then I'm doing my accounts, I'm better off to batch everything, and I will be more efficient and get things done, because I don't have to switch gears so much. So yeah.
Well, and I think too, it depends on like what your niche or business is as far as batching, because in my situation, I always start with my long form content it's the show, it's the podcast episodes. Can't really batch them out if they're not recorded yet, if I haven't interacted with my guests yet. So for me, I'm just kind of once a week on the fly, but I don't stress over it, because I am using my long form content and pulling information and transcripts from there and putting it in my emails, putting it on social. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook. So I always start with my long form, and then I pull bits and pieces out, and that's where my email content comes from.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. And like if you get it right, like you should be able to create, I mean, you could create a year's worth of content, of emails in a day or two, right? With the AI technology and all of that sort of thing, because they can be created quite quickly once you get into a rhythm and a format and all of that sort of thing, with it. So it just depends on how people like to work. Like some people like to be more time, like more like insert, like let's say something happens in the world and you can then come in and you can talk about, yeah, you can apply it, your email as a lesson from what happened. And that way you're sort of entering that sort of news jacking, if you like, which you can't do if you batch.
Right.
But then other people are like, hey, I just want to get this off my plate. And so it somewhat depends on your personality as well, how you prefer to, prefer to approach it. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way. It's just, finding what works for you.
Right, exactly. What works for you, what works for your time management, all the good stuff. Now, my next question
Yes.
to you, is there like a max or minimum emails we should be sending in a week, or how much?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a big concern people have is, I don't want to email my list too much. Well, in my experience, that's not the problem. It's emailing your list too little. Like I was speaking with someone the other day and they had a massive list. So I called a friend of mine he's really good with all the, the really technical aspects of the list. And he's like, if you haven't emailed your list for 4 months, then it's a problem. And the ISPs and all of the, the technical guys in charge of sending it, they don't like it. And your list could just be null and void. Like you actually can't use it. So the biggest risk, like I would say at an absolute minimum, mailing your list at least once a month. I think everyone should be doing it at least once a week. And like I did it daily for a long time. I never got much pushback at all in terms of doing it daily, as long as you do it the right way. Like if I'm constantly knocking on your door and going, hey, Allison, like buy from me and do this and do that, and I'm adding zero value, then obviously you're probably not going to be interested in getting those emails. But if it's conversational, if it's friendly, if you've subscribed and you want to learn about email marketing, and then I'm emailing you daily with content, you're unlikely to get upset by that. But I think definitely weekly. And if you want to go up to daily, I think that's fine, depending on your schedule and what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Before we wrap this up, do you have any last minute like tips or strategies for when it comes to email marketing?
I think, like there's one little hack that listeners might want to do if you've got an email list, which is, it was originated by Dean Jackson, but it's called the 9-word email. So it's just something along the lines of, particularly if you've had people, inquire before about your services and not go ahead and things like that. And it's just an email, and you might put quick question in the subject line, or just put their first name in the subject line. And it's like, hi, Allison, are you still interested in booking appointments from your email list? ? Scott. So there's nothing else. So it just comes across very personal. It's a quick question. It's easy for them to reply to. And you'll find that if you want to just get some belief in email marketing before you do anything, just try sending something like that out to your list and see what happens, because I think you'll find you'll revive a whole heap of gold that's sitting in your email list. And I look at it like acres of diamonds, right? Like we go out searching for these shiny objects, and we're searching all over the world for this amazing hack or that sort of thing, and it's literally sitting in our backyard within our own customer and prospect list.
And I think you can also do that too with the 9-word email. Like I'm always thinking of ideas. You could even say, hey, are we connected on Instagram? Let's connect. You just put a little link there, and then you need to say, I will follow you back. Like, let's connect.
Yes. Yeah. So you can do those short emails can be really, really powerful sort of things. So incredibly. I think it's more powerful to probably do it the other way around and do it on Instagram and say, hey, are you, jump on my email list. I've got this report, because we're pulling them across the email list. Yep. But like the more omnipresent you can be, the better, right? Like if I'm seeing you on Instagram and I'm seeing you on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, and I'm seeing you all over the place, then the trust builds up. The trust builds up over time. Like there's this book called They Ask You Answer. And one thing he found, and this was when I started, because I come from a direct response background, but after reading this, I'm like, and I read it, I can't remember how, it was probably like 5-10 years ago. I was like, oh, there really is something in this whole content thing. Because he said, if someone had absorbed, he was selling swimming pools and he was using blogs, but he says if someone had absorbed 30 or more pieces of content, they came to a sales meeting, the conversion rate went from 10% up to 80%. So what our aim as business owners should be is, how do we get people to absorb the equivalent of 30 pieces of blog content? And that may be through, like a 1 hour video might be the equivalent of five blogs, right? Or 10 blogs. If you can get them to a half day event, then that's the equivalent of 30 blogs all in there. That's why event-based marketing sells so well. If you get them on their email list and you get them to read 30 emails, then the trust in you just develops over that period of time. And then when you do get someone into a meeting who has done that, it's just a totally different meeting than if someone has just seen a Facebook ad and booked in an appointment. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's really cool. Well, this was an awesome conversation today, Scott. Let the listeners know where they can connect with you and see your work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you listen to this and you'd like to, probably the best thing I'd suggest is you might want to download. I've got it's called the Ultimate AI Email Writing Cheat Sheet, and inside that you'll get 3 prompts which will allow you to whip up emails within minutes, even if you're a non-writer. If you'd like to grab a copy of that, you can go to simpleemailroi.com/AI. And if you just like to dig into it a bit more, just go to simpleemailroi.com, and you'll see lots of goodies there, and that you can learn about email marketing for your business.
Awesome. I will make sure that it is in the show notes. And thanks again for being here.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It's been a great chat. Thanks, Allison.